Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Brie. I won't lie to you, this is the second time I'm recording this. I got about halfway through and realized my microphone was not attached. So that's why I'm holding it, because I tried to pin it and things were going wrong and I'm unwell. So we're just gonna get right into it. I'm gonna tell you about all the books I read in September. I have 8 books to talk about. I hope to give you details about each of them. I don't have a ton to say about a couple of them, like 1 or 2 maybe, but on the whole, I do feel like I had a pretty good reading month. I hope my camera doesn't die, because I was dealing with camera battery issues, so I have some charging, but as I just got finished recording about half of it, I don't know how much of my battery I've eaten up. So without further ado, let's just get into it. First, I have a series. I read the first and second, and that is the Wax and Wayne series by Brandon Sanderson. I'm going to put this down because I only have the second one, and I'll have pictures of them up on the screen. So I read Alloy of Law, which is the first one, and then Shadows of Self, which is the second. This is following the events of the first trilogy. So the first trilogy is like the Mistborn trilogy, and then this is like hundreds of years later, and it's considered like the Mistborn trilogy, like Mistborn era 2, but it's Wax and Wayne. It is a Western style story. We are kind of like in almost like the Industrial Revolution of this time period, and we're following Wax, who is like a noble who was kind of out in the Wild Wild West, as like a bounty hunter, and he had to come home due to like events that happened right at the beginning that I don't know if it's a spoiler, but is pretty like big, so I don't want to spoil it, I guess. But he comes back to the city, and these women just start getting like kidnapped by these people that are masked that nobody knows how they're kidnapping them, what they're doing with these women, and he determines that he's going to find out what's happening to them. He's also kind of got like a marriage of convenience happening, and Wayne, his like friend from the Wild Wild West, decides to come, and they're going to solve these mysteries together. I did really enjoy the banter between them. I think it gives a little bit of like the vibes of like the Lives of La Camorra, where we have characters that just have like witty banter between each other, and that's something I always really find fun. The first book I gave 4 stars. I think the mystery element really worked in its favor to get back into the world, and I liked kind of the fast-paced nature of it, and seeing Wax have to like re-navigate this life that he didn't want, and how he has to like navigate all these politics. But the second book, ultimately, I gave 3 stars, and I liked it a bit less than the first one because I think it gets into religion in a way that just didn't wholly work for me. Always know that Brandon Sanderson brings religion into his works. Like, he is someone who religion is a heavy focus, and based off the events of the first series, I knew that religion was also going to play a role in here because it played a role in the other one. But this one just really kind of like the whole theme of the book was religion, and like, are gods merciful gods? Are they all knowing? Should we just blindly trust in God and his plan for us? And that's just something I don't really care about reading. It's not something I'm personally like offended by. It was just something that I just didn't need to take up so much of the story, and it really did it. And also, I think because I've read a lot of like mystery type books or thriller or horror, the element of surprise for a lot of these twists were not as shocking to me, because I think he was leaning on a lot of like mystery twists and turns that I just read a lot of those things a lot, so I was able to see a lot coming, where I think maybe if you're a primarily like fantasy reader and this is your first time dipping your toes into like a fantasy mystery, it could come really shocking to you. But the revelations that were made were all things that I just like kind of knew were going to happen. So therefore, like, when those things happened, they were less shocking. And then because we had such a religious element, it just all like didn't work the greatest for me. I do think I will continue on and finish out the series because I do like other books in the Cosmere, which, if you don't know, Brandon Sanderson has like a whole world that it's like different planets, things are different happening. What am I saying? Different planets, different things are happening, different books follow different planets, essentially, kind of. Other people can describe it way better than I just did. But I do want to read other books in the Cosmere, so I feel like I need to finish the series to like fully appreciate other books in the Cosmere. So I will be finishing the series, but I was really excited for the first one, and then the second one kind of let me down. So now I'm a little less excited for the series because I was actually pleasantly surprised by the first one. And then I finished Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. So I finished out the series, which I'm both like very happy with myself, but also sad that it's over. I've been putting it off since it came out, and I had started it, but then I put it down because I was just like in a reading slump and I needed to love this in its entirety. And I did. I finally went back. I listened to it. It was amazing. It was 5 stars. I mean, there's not much I can tell you because it is the 3rd book in the series, but everything that's been happening in the series, I feel like it wrapped up in a really nice way. I really liked Emily's like exploration into identity and how the things that are happening to her in this story, how they might change her, and she doesn't want to change. She wants to remain herself and have her identity and her autonomy, and also worrying about... Oh, I guess that's a spoiler. Well, I'm gonna cut that out. Also, like, just worrying about, like, Wendell tiring of her and things like that. I think were all very, like, well-done conversations, and it had the same cozy vibes. Kind of the mystery, not really mystery, but, like, the big bad that we've been chasing throughout throughout the books. I'm getting tired, can you tell? Was wrapped up in here really nicely. I think that the way we explored that, I enjoyed as well. And I loved it. I love the found family. I love Wendell's little, like, letters to Emily that are in here randomly throughout the books. She always had, like, Heather Fawcett always has, like, a section where Wendell's, like, writing letters to Emily, and they're my favorite part of all the books. But yeah, we brought back, like, a lot of the characters that we've seen throughout the books, and it was just really, really great. I loved it. I recommend it. If you like the series, I think you'll like the way that this wrapped up, and I can't wait to do a massive reread of all 3. I just love this series so much. It's really captured my whole heart, and she recently announced she has another book coming out, not in this series, but like in a new, I don't know if it'll be a series, but it's like a cat cafe type thing, and you know I've already pre-ordered that, so very excited for that. That comes out in February. Next, we have God Killer by Hannah Kaner. This came out a couple years ago. I want to say, like, what year? 2020? One moment. 2023. So a couple years ago. And I feel like this was a very divisive book when it came out. And so I hadn't really at the time paid much attention to it because I didn't really think it was going to be for me. But then I heard it had disability rep and it was a really good disability rep. And so that made me want to pick it up. Now, disability rep, 10 out of 10. My battery's dying. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry if this angle's different. But as I was saying, the disability rep in here is 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed the way that this was portrayed. We have a lot of different characters with a lot of different disabilities, and I think that that was amazing to see. I guess I should tell you what it's about. We basically have a god killer, so this woman who goes and hunts gods because gods are outlawed in this world from the king after this giant war that happened. She goes around and is killing gods, and she meets a young girl who has a god like attached to her, and she can't just leave her. If she tries to kill the god, the young girl will die, so she's trying to find a way to like detach them. And then while they're on the journey to try to figure out where they need to go to figure this out, they also meet a knight who is on a journey from the king, and they are trying to get to the same place essentially and figure out what's going on. It's got a bit of a found family element to it. It's got like an adventure story. It kind of feels like a old fantasy quest type story, but the disability rep in here is very vast. There's very many different kinds of disability, and the thing that I like about it is that disability is not seen as these people are being less than as someone with a disability. I'm really tired of seeing representation of like disability as something to be cured or get over, or that you are somehow like even better because of your disability. You're not like, look at all the bad things that have happened to them, but they're overcoming it because they're like amazing, genius, whatever. Like, we don't have either of those sides. We just have normal people with disabilities that they have to navigate and figure out. We have people in very different stages of their disability, some in acceptance, some where the disability is really getting the best of them, and they are trying to navigate that and aren't really, like handling it as well as they could, or I guess are handling it as well as they have the tools to. And I really, really, really appreciated about that. I really, really, really appreciated that about this story. And for that, I want to give the book 5 stars, just because that was amazing. But ultimately, this is about a 2.5 star. It gets a whole half star just for the disability rep. But other than that, I didn't really like the plot or the story. It was just a quest story. There was a lot of travel, and yeah, we're hunting things, or things are hunting them, but I don't know. I just got so bored. For like such a short book, it felt like it dragged on so long, but at the same time, I felt like there was so much more that needed to be unpacked to get to where we got to. That really sucks because I really loved the representation in here. I liked the characters. I just wanted more development from them. I wanted more explanation into this world, and I wanted less like just travel on the road kind of stuff. Certain things we focused on, like I wish we focused on other areas, I guess. So it just made it a little boring for me, and unfortunately I will not be continuing on with the story because the way it ends, I just really had no interest by the time it was done. For the first third, I really enjoyed the book, and then as it got further, I just got more and more bored, which is unfortunate because, like I said, I loved the disability rep in here. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Then I've been trying to read a nonfiction, 12 nonfiction, so essentially one every month for 2025, and I've been doing pretty okay at it. But for this, I picked up Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I had heard someone say that the audiobook for this was really good, so I put it on my list, and it's the history and persistence of our deadliest infection, and we're basically talking about how tuberculosis is curable and how a lot of countries don't have access to the care that they need, and so a lot of people are suffering needlessly and are dying needlessly, and also how like infection works and how basically we've discovered the cure for TB, but because like it ever evolves, you also need like more antibiotic resistant drugs, and that always is changing because, as we found, diseases, they over time morph and get used to like the antibiotics that are being used and change. So we always have to be like developing. But because TB has been mostly eradicated in the West, we don't put any more research into it. We also don't make the drugs more affordable for people who actually need it. So that means that people in countries that cannot afford to get this, like he talks a lot about Sierra Leone, if we just reduced like the price of this medication by a couple dollars, like from $5 to $3, the amount of lives we could save is tremendous. But yet we in the West hold on to this information, and essentially medical racism is what's happening here. And John Green just like talks about the injustice in the system. He also talks a lot about like hope and resilience and the people that are in these countries who are doing the work to try to cure TB and trying to help the people that they can. So he highlights a lot of different things, and I really appreciated that about this. It makes you frustrated, it makes you angry, but it also like he definitely highlights the humanity in people and the people doing good. And so I don't think it's a wholly like hopeless book. I think it's just one that is very much highlighting the injustice that is happening. And as someone who's very interested in like the medical world and the way that people access care, I think that this was really well done. And it was written kind of in like memoir style. So he talks a lot about like how he found out about tuberculosis, how he became involved in this, but also like why he continues to do this work. So like it's very accessible. It doesn't feel like you're reading a textbook. It feels like you're reading someone's experience and like their encounters with people who have suffered with tuberculosis or are currently suffering with it. And I think that helped to bring the story to life in a way that's very digestible. So I really liked this, and I would recommend it if you're looking for a nonfiction about health. This was really popular, and I think for good reason. So I decided to start another series, because why finish a series? Well, actually, I did finish Emily Wilde, so maybe it evens out. But I started The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. This is written by two different authors. Marie Brennan is one, and then Alec Helms, I believe, is the other. I have not read their book, but I have read A Natural History of Dragons, which is right behind me, by Marie Brennan, and really enjoyed it. This is also like a historical fantasy. Marie Brennan tends to write that style, but this is set in like ancient Venice. We have like masquerades and things like that, and it's a very like water-based area. And we're following a con artist named Ren, who is basically trying to con her way into this rich family, and she's pretending to be like their long-lost niece, and she wants to like get into their registry so that she can like gain access to their money. But little does she know, they don't have any, really. They're really struggling. And it becomes like a balance of trying to keep her identity a secret while also trying to figure out a way to get this family out of this massive debt that they're in. And then also there is like a character in here who wears a mask and is kind of like takes from the rich, gives to the poor kind of vibes, Robin Hood-esque. And she gets involved with him in a way. And then it's also like there's a lot of like political maneuverings happening in this world. One thing I will say, they very heavily focus on like clothing in here and what everybody's wearing. That is a big part of the story. And I think that brought it down in enjoyment for me just a little bit, because we focus so much on what people are wearing and like what it's made out of and things like that, that it left it just like after a while being a little bit like repetitive. But I did appreciate the way that was like woven into the culture and made you get to know the world a bit better because of how much like that impacts the culture. And then they have masquerades and things like that and balls, and it brought it to life in a way. But after a while it did get a little on my nerves. But this is also a really long book, and not a lot in the plot like happens. There is things in the plot that happens, but it took a long time to get there. But I do enjoy a slow pace, like character driven story. So for me, it didn't work. It didn't ruin anything, but I can see how for some people it might. The way the magic is set up in here is a little confusing. There are certain things that happen in here, like to do with like Ren and her cons, that the magic like works with, and I thought that was interesting. But then there's other ways that the magic's working that we don't really get to understand, and I'm hoping the next book, because of the events of the end, like will hopefully bring that out a bit more. But I feel like the magic system was a little underdeveloped in here, and maybe that's for good reason. But I could see if you're really like big into how magic systems work, this could leave you a little disappointed. But overall, I'm gonna give it a 4-star. I had a good time. I liked Ren as a character. I like seeing her interactions with people and how she's like having to navigate remembering all these different things and different personalities, and like trying to navigate a world where she's like conning. I think that is always fun to me in books, kind of like the Liza La Camora, like seeing how you're going to pull off a heist. It gave like heist vibes without being a heist. And I do really like a heist story because I like seeing how a character has to work through all these difficulties happening to them. Overall, I enjoyed it. I have the next book on my shelf right here, The Liar's Knot, and I will be continuing. It's a trilogy, so I'm definitely interested to keep going with it. I just think it was a little long, which I might have that same complaint because the other one looks just as long. But hopefully we get into more details with it, with the magic and the actual plot of like what's happening. The next two are like horror books, because as soon as we got towards the end of the month, I was like, it is spooky season. So I read Bat Eater by, well, I guess it's called Bat Eater and Other Names for Corzang by Kylie Lee Baker. I think in the UK it's just called Bat Eater, so I might just refer to it as Bat Eater. I don't know. I feel like that's what a lot of people have been referring it to. But anyway, this is set during the pandemic. We have a main character, Cora, who very violently witnesses her sister's death, and it really leaves her scarred. After that, she's trying to find her way in the world, and she ends up as like a crime scene cleaner, where she's cleaning up crime scenes, as a crime scene cleaner does. And it's very gruesome. It's very detailed with that aspect of it. But also as things are progressing, she's noticing that a lot of Asian women, but also men, are being killed, and that no one is seemingly connecting these deaths, even though there are things that are happening that make them seem connected. And then also she is starting to like feel like something is kind of haunting her, and we start to get into like a little bit of ghost vibes. And I think the way that everything was depicted in here was really like gruesome and detailed, but also in a way that everything was purposeful. And you're dealing a lot with racism, especially at this time for Asian people, and the way in which COVID specifically impacted that and really ramped up racism in the US in particular. I don't know about the rest of the world. I do think that it was occurring elsewhere, but I know specifically this is set in New York, and in the US that was very big. And so it's dealing with that as well, like her navigating the world as an Asian person. She is Chinese American, and also her being mixed race, and her mother's side not really understanding and having difficulty with that as well. Like her two identities are being challenged at all times, and not really wanting to connect to her like Chinese ancestry. I think that conversation was all very important, and I think it lent to the story, and seeing how she comes to like navigate that over time. There is a lot in here. It's a heavy book, as a horror usually is, but I think it was really well done. It's kind of a horror thriller because you're kind of trying to figure out what's going on too, so it's like fast paced as well. And it was gross. It was gross, but it was very good, and I gave it 5 stars. I think it's well worth the read. I think it's giving like the perfect like fall summer like bridge of book. I think now would be the perfect time to read it if you're in the mood for a horror. But I'm very glad I read it. And then finally, we have one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. And this is her 3rd book that she's come out with. I've read every single one. This one, I think I'm still giving 5 stars. Don't get me wrong. My ranking for them, I just had a blank moment. My mind just completely went blank. Okay, so ranking. That's what I'm trying to say. Ranking for her books. I think my favorite is Vampires of El Norte, then The Hacienda, and then this one. This one kind of bridges that gap between The Hacienda and Vampires of El Norte, where some people's complaints were that the Vampires of El Norte was like too romance, not enough vampires. And then The Hacienda was like, had romance, but was way more like on the spooky scary. And I feel like this bridges that gap. It's kind of in the middle of the both of them. So obviously we're following Alba Diaz as she's possessed. She visits with her family as she's like betrothed to this one man that has been like her friend since childhood. And they go to these mines where his family has a home, and she goes into those mines and she comes back possessed. And then we have a romance with another character in the book that she is kind of kindling throughout the story, but it's very, very slow burn. And we get both their perspectives throughout the book. And we're just trying to get her unpossessed, essentially, is the course of the story. This is set in 1765 in Zacatecas. We are right at like a time where we have a lot of like colonizers happening. She likes to weave that in as well. So that's also playing a part in the story. We have like religion, Christianity, like taking over the region and trying to like block out other religions. So the people of that area who have their, what the Christians are calling like their spiritual beliefs or whatever, for like the gods and things like that, they don't think that those are correct. So they're trying to like eradicate that. So people with like shrines to gods and things like that are very like looked down upon, and those things are destroyed. And so we have a very like tumultuous time during this era of the world. We are following Alba as she's kind of like also coming to age. She's really trying to fight for autonomy in her life, and she's trying to like maintain as much control in her life as she can because she has so little of it. And then we're following another character, Elias, and he is just trying to like make money from this mine, and leave his family, because he's kind of like the black sheep of the family and nobody wants him there. And so he's just trying to get enough money so he can just like leave on a ship and go elsewhere. They obviously have to deal with possession. And it was really, really good. There was a lot of like scenes that were kind of like spooky. Like it really gave me the vibes of the Hacienda, which was like there are parts that just like make you squirm while also having this really slow burn like romance and yearning. She just always has like this underlying spooky atmosphere that you like can't let go of. And while the stories like don't go full on horror where maybe you're like scared out of your mind, I do feel like the just tension she builds, like it's a slow gothic tension throughout that works so well for me. I think some people would say it's not horror enough, and others maybe dipping their toes in could really enjoy it. If you like yearning and you like a little bit of spook, might I suggest any Isabel Cañas, but this one from me was 5 stars, so I really enjoyed it. All right, there you go. There are the 8 books I read in the month of September. I am very excited for all the spooky reads in October. You'll have to let me know what you read this month down below. Yeah, leave a, I feel like I need a emoji for like Emily Wilde. So like a fairy, a mushroom. If there's a portal, I'll put a couple up here that you could leave down below if you made it to the end. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.